Hello, welcome to Best Top 5. I've been decommissioned for a week. I wasn't doing anything, I just was sitting on my ass. But I came back to do another top 5 as always. So today I want to talk about a genre that I think by now in 2018, it's pretty much dead. There's certain genres that come and go. Like a lot of people are saying that people are getting comic book fatigue. I think maybe in 15 years from now, people might get tired, but so far they're all very popular for the most part, and they're making a lot of money. Westerns is a genre that is slowly coming back. I've seen a few indie westerns coming here and there, but still not very popular. Once upon a time, they were very popular. But there is one genre that I think is dead, finito. I don't think it's coming back, and that is the disaster genre. The disaster genre was very popular in the 1970s. You had a lot of movies like Airport, Earthquake, Meteor, The Hindenburg, Black Sunday. A bunch of those were very, very popular in the mid-70s to late 77, 78. Disaster genre did have a resurgence, or I would say a last hurrah, in the 90s, and it was only because of the advent of CGI. They had gotten to a point where they can do destruction films a little bit better than in the 1970s. Yes, there are a lot of destruction movies out there still, and I actually watched some of the ones that are still being released to this day. So you might be asking, if they're still being released to this day, then why do you mean that the genre is dead? They're still releasing those films. Well, the studios that release disaster movies now are people like The Asylum, with movies like 2012 Ice Age, 2012 Supernova, Oceans Rising, Super Eruption, Super Cyclone, Superstorm. Believe me, these are actual real titles and I've seen some of them. Countdown, Armageddon, there's a bunch of them. Yes, they're still released, but they're awful, and most of them are funny bad. Most disaster movies aren't very good to begin with. They're just fun for the sake of destruction. This is gonna be the weirdest analogy I'm ever gonna make here on Best Top 5. Disaster movies are like pornos. You don't watch them for the plot. It's pretty much going to be about the level of destruction, the quality of destruction, not the quality of the storyline. This top 5 is going to be all theatrical releases from the 70s and from the 90s. I'm going to exclude all the direct-to-video ones, but I do have 2 honorable mentions. The first honorable mention is a movie called Volcano that was released in 1997. Volcano is actually a movie with Tommy Lee Jones in a city where there's a volcano underground and everything goes crazy and erupts. This movie, when I first saw it on VHS, I loved it and I thought it was great. Watching it now, of course, some of the acting is not very good. Tommy Lee Jones is actually moving a lot in this movie, which typically he's very wooden and very straightforward in most of his deliveries, and he actually shows a lot of more emotion in this film. That was my first honorable mention. The other one is Twister. Twister's a really cool film with Bill Paxton. It's literally just people trying to survive this crazy tornado. But what is number 5? Number 5 is Dante's Peak with Pierce Brosnan and Denzel Hamilton. The movie uses great practical and great CGI that still holds up to this day. The whole story is basically Pierce Brosnan is a geologist who moves into this small town to study the seismic waves and the movements in plate tectonics in the town of Dante's Peak. And there is a volcano that has been dormant for many, many years, but certain movements started happening and the volcano erupts. The movie's enjoyable. It's not out of print. You can find this on DVD and Blu-ray. It's widely available. If you like destruction and shit just blowing up and going berserk, you're gonna love Dante's Peak. Number 4, I don't want people to misquote me, is not a good movie, but I put it in this list because it is enjoyable for the amount of destruction that you have in the film, and that is Armageddon. Michael Bay, after he did the Transformers movies, you can't tell what's going on the screen. At least in the early 90s when he did movies like The Rock and Bad Boys, you can still tell what's going on, and I think this is his last super blowing up shit movie where you can still kind of discern what's going on the screen. The whole story is basically a meteor's coming to Earth. We done fucked up. So the only way we can survive is by sending oil drillers to space. It sounds ridiculous, and it is, but it's fun. And Bruce Willis is one of the oil drillers, and they have to drill into this meteor and put up 2 nuclear bombs to blow it up. Hopefully it would split and go around the Earth, and it sounds really dumb, but I love the fact that you see a bunch of like meteors just falling into the Earth and just destroying a bunch of shit everywhere. Number 3, another film that came out at the same time as Armageddon, and that movie was Deep Impact. Deep Impact is actually a more realistic take on the story. There's no splitting of the of the actual, you know, meteor and going around the Earth. They're just going to destroy it, and they actually are sending astronauts instead of sending oil drillers into space, because the logic of Michael Bay was that it's easier to train oil drillers than it is to train NASA people to become oil drillers. Unlike Armageddon, where they find out about the rock, the actual meteor that's hitting the Earth, like I think weeks before it happens, they know about it more realistically a year or so in advance. So people are living with the notion that it's going to happen. So they have like a year to prepare, and they're building this like dome where certain people are going to survive. They're going to hide, since they know that there's no way, even if they destroy the meteor, the other half will still destroy most of the Earth. So they're hoping that they can re-inhabit the rest of the population that will die. So I thought it was much more of a bigger impact of destruction, because in Armageddon, while there is destruction, the notion of the destruction in Deep Impact is much bigger and more believable in my eyes than it was in Armageddon. So now we're going to number 2. Number 2 is actually a film that came out in the 70s, and this movie is The Poseidon Adventure with Gene Hackman. And you have an all-star cast. You have a lot of known actors from that time. That was actually the original formula of the disaster films. You would get a lot of known actors all in one big disaster film. In Poseidon Adventure, it's a group of people on a ship, and it's sinking, it's going crazy. And this movie had, again, this was made during a time when there were no CGI, there was none of that stuff available, and it still looks great. So number 1 is also from the 70s, and this is The Towering Inferno. Towering Inferno has Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, again, a lot of known actors from that time. And in this one, it's a fire that starts off in one of the floors, and it just starts escalating until it burns the whole building. The film is actually one of the longest of the genre. I think it goes for 2 hours and 30 minutes. Whenever I watch that film, it makes me afraid of being in a situation where there's fire. It's a good disaster movie. It has a bunch of shit burning up, and great acting. You also have William Holden in the film, who is a good known actor from that time. So those are the top 5 destruction films on my list. I hope you enjoy this list. I'm Best Guy. Make sure to follow me on Instagram. Every now and then I'll post some interesting stuff there. Make sure to check out more stuff from Dropping Loads. There's videos every day. There's a weekly videos, you know, there's a bunch of stuff. There's not just me, there's a bunch of people here on this channel. So anyway, guys, make sure to like, share, subscribe, hit that little bell button so you can get all the wonderful notifications. And until next time.